A quick sermon about the use of pronouns in our society. So, I do private tutoring, and one of my clients recently learned in school, this is something I wish we had learned when I was their age, that you don't assume pronouns on people until they specifically tell you to. And they had learned about differences in sexual orientation, but he had done a writing assignment. His teacher had asked him to write about people he knew in his community that were of a different sexual background and why it's important to include them and all that. Now, I looked at some of the materials, and even though it was not okay to assume pronouns, it was perfectly okay to assume that everybody liked to have some sort of sexual relationship, right? Even though it could be unconventional, right? And he had a writing assignment, and I helped him add a couple paragraphs about how he knows how his tutor is happily romantic toward himself, and how some people can feel that way. And I helped him write about how his tutor had taken a trip to the Rocky Mountains during the quarantine and felt a great sense of romance, a much better love life than he had when he experimented with other relationships. So he turned in the paper. The teacher loved the writing style, but my student confessed to me that he and his teacher had a brief discussion, and his teacher said, just between the two of us, I think your tutor is kind of selfish. Now, I gotta point out something. I'm not upset about that remark. I gotta point out something, though. Is society not built around people who are self-interested and make society greater? Is it not? I mean, sure, I'm selfish. I gotta point out another comment that I routinely hear is that I'm kind of selfish for not having children. Now, I disagree with that comment. Even if I die without ever having biological children, did I not have children? I mean, you ever hear the saying that it takes a village to raise a child? And whatever I do with my life, that becomes the substrate of civilization, in which our civilization has our future generation, right? That's how I like to think about it. Nobody can claim that they had a child just between the two of them, right? Would you like to have a child without the rest of civilization churning the way it does? Would you? And so everybody has children, right? So I like to think of it this way. I have about 3 billion nieces and nephews and 5 billion aunts and uncles, distant ones, right? And even if the child never leaves my body, I have children, right? I have a share of the next generation. Thought I would point that out. But I think the reason why they didn't learn in school about solo sexuality or auto romance is think about what happens when an auto-romantic guy goes on a date. How does he spend his money compared to somebody who's in a two-person relationship? Well, they probably spend their money much more judiciously, right? I'll give you an example. I took up bowling about 1.5 years ago. And when I was going out by myself, I would be very judicious about going during the off-peak hours where it was really inexpensive, right? When I was living in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, they had an all-night event that was, I think on Wednesday nights, $10 for the whole night, right? Unlimited, right? Now, if I had a partner and they weren't available, whatever gender they are, if they weren't available that Wednesday night, it's not like you want to be cheap around somebody you want to start a life with, right? And so it hurts the business. I distinctly remember when I first broke up with my girlfriend at the turn of the pandemic, and we locked down for 2 months, obviously. Then we went back to phase 2, and then I started going out on solo sexual dates. I didn't have the girl to constrain where I could date, how I could date, how much I needed to spend. It felt like I was working at a university. I had a serious pay cut because obviously they weren't doing too well during the pandemic. But when I saved all that money from the solo sexual relationship, it felt like I was rich. I remember thinking, oh my God, it felt like I just moved up a socioeconomic class. It really did, at least with my dating life. And unfortunately, the other side of that is that big business doesn't like it when people are auto-romantic like that, right? And so it filters down to the school. They don't teach about it, and our school teachers think you're crazy for practicing it, right? Anyway, I wish more people would be themselves, right? Go on a solo sexual date, and there's probably a lot more solo sexuals than we're led to believe. And if we all did that on a Friday night, I think things would quickly change, right? Obviously, our businesses would have to start accepting it, right? Or lose a big share of business, right? June 13th is the 12th anniversary of the first time I ever went on a solo sexual date. Like I mentioned in the previous video, I'm offering a reward to anybody who goes on a solo sexual date between now and June 13th. Record a 5-minute video, upload it, we'll make a music video, and let's come out of the closet together. Join me.